At the heart of your community, your station, your music, your Castledown FM.
And it's another 2 in a row show. We are live till 9 o'clock tonight, 104.7 FM in the local area. And we're also online as well, www.castledownfm.com. And I'm very excited because I have a guest, my first live guest actually in the studios of Castledown FM for 2018. It's the fantastic Nick, who is actually called, is a singer, and he's called Wildbeliever. Hello, Nick, how are you?
I'm very good, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's an honour to have you, I tell you honestly. How are the canapes and the expensive wine? Is it okay?
Yeah, we'll say very good, and we'll wait for the cup of tea to turn up.
That'd be great. But with no expenses paid, you see, Nick, on this show. It's just fantastic, really. So, yeah. Anyway, you are a singer, a local singer. Okay, how long have you been singing for, and why get into singing? Basically, for
well,
you?
I suppose I'm probably more of a musician than a singer, to be fair. I like to put new music together. I find it really, really interesting, and I think the singing, it's quite hard to find vocalists that want to guest just for studio work, really. So I wouldn't say I'm a singer. It's more a point of putting my voice down, because that's the only voice that's available, to be honest with you, half the time. So the music for me is generally more the most interesting part. I like multi-layered music. I like to create things and build it up and bring it back down again. And as I say, that the voice is just a necessity at the end of things, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So so do you play instruments then? Is that yeah?
Yeah, I learned to play the piano when I was very young, and to be honest, it was interesting to start with, and I went through lots of exams and things, as you do when you're at school. I was never really that natural at it, and then I got to a point where a lot of bands started to come along. It was the advent of the synth age, really, and I started to hear all these amazing sounds. Particularly early on with the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, with the Doctor Who theme and things like this. People like Giorgio Moroder at the beginning, and then the early Human League and bands like this. And I was absolutely in awe of these noises. And I thought, there I am playing a piano that only makes one sound. I really want to get my hands on. But of course, back then it wasn't affordable technology, whereas now it is. So would you say then your decade is the 80s then? Because obviously we go for the decades on this particular show. Yeah, sure.
80s good for you?
I think the 80s get a bad rap, to be honest, a lot of the time. Undoubtedly, there was some dross in there. Particularly at the top of the charts towards the end of the decade. I think a lot of the sort of Hit Factory, Stock Aitken and Waterman stuff is not, for me, it wasn't very inventive, but there was a lot of very inventive music in that decade as well. We were more spoilt then, I think, than we know. If you take the beginning of the decade, we'd come off the back of punk and new age. And there were new bands making really, really interesting sounds, things that now we just take for granted. But as I say, early Human League, Gary Newman, bands like this they were artists that were really experimenting and pushing the boundaries a lot. And I suppose it got overdone a little bit. So at the end of the 80s, everyone was a little bit sick of synth. And what do we end up with? We went into the 90s, we ended up with Oasis. We went back to where we started from. But yeah, I suppose I'm a byproduct of my own generation, so I would go for the 80s, yes. Yeah.
Human League, I mean, they're absolutely superb, still going strong as well, which is great, with 3 of them, isn't it now?
Yes.
And I've seen them a few times actually down in Southampton. I mean, what do you think about their albums? What about Dare? Do you like Dare? Do you like that album?
Dare's a phenomenal album, and what I love about the story of Dare is they'd recently binned off Martin Ware, who went off to form Heaven 17. And the lovely story is that whilst Dare was being recorded during the day, Heaven 17 were recording Penthouse and Pavement in the same studio at night. And there was just this real competition, because there'd been a falling out between the band members. It was literally, they would go in the studio, and the whole point of making that album was to better the other band. And as a result of it, you just ended up with 2 stunning albums, completely different styles, but the net result was two albums that still stand up today, for sure,
And what about gigging? Do you go gigging? Do you go out and sort of play out and about sort of pubs, local events and what have you? Yeah, do you sort of do that as well?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not something I naturally gravitate towards, and I shouldn't say that really, because lots of artists that want to promote themselves, they do the gigging scene all the time. And the truth is, I get very nervous. When I'm in the studio and it's just me, I can make as many mistakes as I like, and I can work and fettle it, for forever, really, until someone else hears it. And when I'm on stage, I am that stereotypical guy behind the rack of synths that the taller the rack, the better for me.
What about some memorable gigs then? Where have you been over the years?
Back in, I suppose the late 80s, I got involved with a project where there was basically a DJ and myself with live music, and we toured the UK every year for a week, all in aid of children in need. And we literally did Southampton all the way to Scotland and back down again, doing 2 gigs a day, so one lunchtime, one in the evening. Of course, none of it was paid for, and it was a tough apprenticeship, but I got really fond memories of that. And then in more recent times, I've been lucky enough to play the Brick Hill Fest in Wiltshire, which again is a big charity fundraiser. It's spread over 2 days, and they have something like, I think it's about 700 or 800 people, spectators a day. So that's a pretty memorable audience. And I played there with a friend of mine, Kim Garner, singing the first time. We had a sort of tea time slot, and it went down a storm, and we were so lucky. The next time we were asked back, we were the penultimate band, so we were one behind the headliner, and I think that was the best slot you could have asked for, really, because by the time the headline band came on, I think we had the best out of everybody, So
that's great. So Kim is a friend of our show. Yes, she's fantastic. We met her at some of Theyre, actually, Fate last year, and obviously she put you onto us, which is great, which is so brilliant. Yeah, she's a great singer as well, really great singer.
She is.
So the Children in Need gig then, that must be really amazing, sort of going up the country. How much money did you raise then in the end?
I honestly can't remember now, but I remember it was a really strange thing, and if I look back now, it probably wouldn't ever happen again. We literally blagged everything. I can remember one year we did it, and of course every tour needs a van. And I can remember we blagged a brand new van off the RAC. It was literally had no miles on the clock. It was a Leyland Sherpa or something. Had the orange flashing lights on the roof and everything. It was all sign written as an RAC van, and they just gave it to us for a week. And of course we just filled it up with PAs and all the synths and everything else. And I remember breweries gave us T-shirts and things to auction off. It was amazing how many people just gave us things. They didn't know us from Adam, and it was fantastic. So
brilliant.
Yeah, but we did raise a lot. I remember we raised a lot of money, and the last gig in Southampton when we got back was always the big one. That was the one where we let our hair down and really went for it. And they were always they're memories that will stick with me for a long time. Yeah,
brilliant, really good. Yeah. What about Wildbeliever then? Why that particular name for yourself?
Well, it's not really that big a story, if I'm honest, Kev. It's a long time ago, I was forced on some web forum or something to have some kind of username or a handle, and I couldn't think of anything. And probably my musical hero is a guy called Alan Wilder, who used to be in Depeche Mode years ago, and I just absolutely love everything he's ever touched. So that's the wild part of Wildbeliever.
Right. Okay.
And the believer part appears in many Depeche Mode lyrics as like personal Jesus, lift up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. I just strung them together. I thought, I don't know what to use, and it just stuck. So that's it.
All right, we're going to take a little break now, if that's all right, Nick. Sure. We're going to play a couple of tracks now from the 1970s.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about, because you've got a new EP out, is
Yes,
that right?
yeah, Disconnected, yes.
Yeah, and we're going to play a couple of tracks between now and 8 o'clock, if that's okay. I've listened to them all. They're great. They're absolutely superb tracks, okay? I cannot wait to play them live on the show, okay? And then I've got a couple of 80s ones for you, is that okay?
Fantastic.
I hope you'll like that, is that okay?
Thank you.
So we're going to play Eruption next with I Can't Stand the Rain, followed by the Supremes and Nathan Jones.
Get in touch with Castledown FM via our Facebook and Twitter pages.
And it's another Kevin Lawrence and 2 in a row show. We are live until 9 o'clock tonight. This is Castledown FM. I've got the fantastic Nick, my first live guest actually in the studios of Castledown FM for 2018. He is Wildbeliever. Right, did you enjoy those 2 tracks there, Nick?
Yes.
From the 1970s.
That's it.
I love that Nathan Jones one actually by then, because it sort of twists the sound, doesn't it?
That's it, yeah.
It's just amazing, really, which is great. So, yes. Now, I hear then that you have a new EP out. Is this your first EP?
Yeah, it is. To be honest, for a long time, people have been saying to me, and I'm sure it's in jest a lot of the time, when's your album coming out? Please, I've heard some of your things. Please, do an album. And I'll be brutally honest, my intention was to do exactly that. But it's such a long process, particularly when it's not your day job, that I got to the point I thought, well, I'm really proud of the 4 tracks that I've now put onto the EP. So the EP is a way of kind of releasing half an album, really, while I finish working on the other half. So Disconnected is a 4-track EP. 3 tracks with vocals, 1 instrumental. I just felt that they all belonged in the same place together. Really, they had the word disconnected it just seemed to be a word that joined together a lot of the lyrical content of those tracks. So it started off really as a project name, and it just stuck. And so that's where it gets its name from. Yes,
that's great. So there's more to come then, Nick. Yeah,
yes.
You're going to make it into a full album then. That's the plan, is it?
Yeah. Well, I think the next plan will be another EP, 4 or 5 track EP, right, which in essence will be an album across 2 EPs, and then we'll see where it goes after that. Yeah.
And what's the response been like so far then with this particular, your first EP then?
I've been, I'll be honest, I've been really bowled over. Lots of people have messaged me. It's lovely. A day or 2 after it was released, because when you release it out into the world now on all the digital platforms, they tend to populate not all at the same time. So it takes a while for it to turn up first on iTunes and then somewhere else and somewhere else. But the weekend was lovely for me because it had been out a few days, and I started to get the messages come through, sort of private messages and things, and they were all, really positive and encouraging, which is lovely because making music's quite an insular thing, really. You spend a lot of time in the studio, and all you know is that you're making music that you like. And the worst thing in the world is to try and make music for other people's ears. It's impossible. So you make music that you like, and you've no idea whether you're the only person in the world that likes it or whether other people are going to warm to it as well. So, yeah, I've been really bowled over, and I'm very grateful for the comments I've had. Yeah,
that's great. And where did you record it then, Nick?
It was recorded. I've got a little studio at my home, and I recorded the whole thing there. The only exception was I had a guest vocalist on one track, Georgia Ainsworth. She's absolutely fantastic. We recorded her vocal in a friend's studio in North Devon when I went down there for a weekend. She's so brilliant. She did it in about 2 takes and left me to come back and play around with the vocal and move things around a bit and what have you. But other than that, it was all recorded in my studio. It was recorded there. I produced it and I mixed it, and it finally went off to someone I know just for the mastering touch just at the end. But other than that, I'm pleased to report it's a homegrown deal.
That's great, really, really good. And this lovely lady who's we're going to play that song in a minute, if that's okay. Start off with that one, and she's listening. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I think I've just had a message from her on Facebook saying that we sounding good, so that's good.
Oh, good.
But what a lot of people don't know is that she's actually in Cameroon at the moment.
Wow.
On a mercy ship. Her and her husband are doing missionary work basically out there at the minute. And she's picked up that that I'm in here with you tonight,
Yes.
and is obviously listening from
Wow.
over there. So you're stretching further than the local area, Kev, for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So tell us about this particular track then. How long did it take you to put it together? Tell us about it.
It was. It actually came together quite quickly. I wrote most of it whilst walking the dogs in the morning,
Okay.
and I just had a melody in my head. I had no idea what the words would be or anything, but I had a melody, and I've got a terrible memory, and I get a great idea for a song, and 5 minutes later I can't remember what it was. So I tend to whistle into my phone and record the melody.
Wow.
And then when I get back into the studio, I think, what was that I was whistling this morning, and then play around with it. So that track came along pretty quick, actually. Mixing it not so quick, but the production was fairly straightforward, and it's probably still one of my faves, I think.
Yeah, I do like it. We're going to play it now.
Thank you.
Is that okay for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All
Yes,
right.
thanks.
Would you like to introduce it then, please?
Yeah, this is Wildbeliever featuring Georgia Ainsworth, and the track is I Yearn For You.
It's up next. Here we go, Nick.
At the heart of your community, your station, your music, your Castledown FM.
Through
Get in touch with Castledown FM via our Facebook and Twitter pages.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. She's got a great voice, hasn't she?
Fantastic voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't take her long at all, like you said before.
No, it was a very quick process, and we actually set about recording, well, one of her own tracks on the same weekend as well that I produced for her. Which I still need to get finished, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll be working on that soon as well, and we'll get that out. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
So what was that called again, please? And who's that lovely lady again,
so that's
please?
The tracks I Yearn for You, and the lady's name is Georgia Ainsworth. And yeah, formerly of North Devon and now of Cameroon.
Great. Fantastic. Really, really good. Right, we're going to play now for you. Okay, I'm just going to play them. Is that okay? From the as you know, this show, we go through the decades, and we're up to the 1980s now. After that's a fantastic track there of yours. I'm just going to play them, and I hope you enjoy them. Okay, you can turn up your little volume there if you want to, Nick. That'd be great. Thanks. Here we go. Right, Nick, I think we're all dancing to that one.
Yeah.
That's a Friday, Saturday night disco classic, isn't it? I tell you honestly.
Yeah, it's probably one of those tracks that, or even that album, Speak and Spell of Depeche Mode in 1981. It was probably a bit uncool for a bloke to like it, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. And straight away, I just thought, again, how do you do that with these old analog synths and an 8-track? And they were producing music like that back then, and the rest of us were playing around with monophonic synths where you can only play one note at a time, and all it ever did was make a noise, and that was it. And you listen to things like that and you think that's so clean, it was so well put together, none of the sounds tripped over the others and what have you, and I was in awe of it. The whole album, right from the beginning, was Martin. Well, back then it was Vince Clarke songwriting.
Yes, that's right.
Who
very talented, isn't he?
Very talented man. Yeah, obviously went on to form Yazoo with Alison Moyet.
Very good as well. She is. I like her. Yeah.
Then some tracks with the Assembly, which is a short run thing.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then obviously Erasure. So he's he's earned his money over the years for sure.
And Erasure as well had a new album out, and we've got a few of their new tracks on the system actually here, and still sounding as fresh as ever, really. Just I saw them as well actually in London many years ago, and it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant show. I think he did about 3 hours. I mean, he just kept going. I was very lucky to see. I caught up with the one and only Yazoo reunion tour. Right.
Alison Moyet, Vince Clarke, and the irony was that I was sat about 2 seats away from Andy Bell from Erasure.
Really.
With Alison Moyet shouting up into the seat, saying to him, "Thanks for lending me Vince Clarke." So, but that was phenomenal. Evening,
Well, she came here actually. She came to Salisbury, the City Hall. I don't know if it's last year or the year before. I tried to get tickets, but of course it's sold out straight away. But she's amazing singer.
It's quite phenomenal to think that the new town of Basildon spawned so much talent. Really, if you think about it, Depeche Mode in its entirety, Vince Clarke and every band he's ever been in, and Alison Moyet, they all went to the same school together, along with some of the guys from The Cure. I mean, it's incredible, really.
Yeah. They're another great band as well, aren't they? So, what other bands then have you seen? Have you seen Human League?
I've never seen Human League. I've seen Heaven 17 before. I'm a massive Blancmange fan. I did a remix of one of their tracks a couple of years ago. It all sounds very grand, like I was asked to, but the truth was it was a sort of online competition thing, really. But it felt amazing because there I was in my little studio working away with Neil Arthur's voice from Blancmange that I'd grown up with and passionately loved his voice, and I thought, there I've got carte blanche to play around with his vocal, and in the end I think about 95% of the music I put in the bin and used my own. Rather than a remix, it was recreating lots of things, but that just felt great to play around with his voice and think, wow, this is the real thing. What about these 80 reunion tours as well? Have you ever been to any of those? I haven't, no. To be honest, I think it's just because I'm a little bit picky.
Okay.
I know, like a lot of us, I guess, I know what I like, and there's probably a handful of bands on the bill that I wouldn't be fussed about seeing, so I'll go to the ends of the earth to see the ones I really like.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time Blancmange played was not that long ago, and I think it was October time, and I was actually working away at the time, and I couldn't get to the Southampton gig or anything. So when I got back, I actually went to Bristol.
Great.
Just to watch them on that night, and I'll do that if I, if I'm really feel connected with a band, then I'll do that for sure.
And what was that like? Because obviously recently, are they still the same? Still?
Yeah, not the same. Obviously, Blancmange originally were two guys, Neil Arthur and Stephen Luscombe. Stephen Luscombe's backed out really through ill health in recent years, but Neil Arthur generally has some good musicians with him on stage, and he's as extrovert as he ever was, and still sounds brilliant. And the lovely thing was that there was a band supporting called Curses. Curses was actually a lady, Roberta Fedora, that she now lives on the Isle of Wight, who I know. Loosely, and I absolutely love everything she does as well. So to me, it was utopia. Curses on first, and then Blancmange. What a great night, and all for sort of 20 quid or something, So
bargain, absolute bargain. Yeah. Right, now you're going to stick around, aren't you, for a little bit? Till after the news, if that's okay.
Sure.
So what we're going to do now, Nick, we're going to go back to the 1990s with a bit of Oasis for you. Is that okay? And this is Cigarettes and Alcohol, quite a good track from them. And then after the 8 o'clock news, we're going to do Blue Pearl with Naked in the Rain, if that's okay. And then we'll talk a little bit more about this fantastic EP that you've got out, and we're going to play another track from that.
Thanks.
Is that okay? And then your EP has been selected for next month's local EP of the month. Is that okay? And we'll play all 4 tracks, one each week based on the show.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes.
Would that be okay for you?
Brilliant.
All right, fantastic. So you were saying about Oasis, you like them, yeah?
I do, actually. I love the rebellion of it. It's sort of
it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Rolling Stones meets the Beatles meets punk, really, in a way, the attitude. But love it. And
the question is, of course, on everybody's tip of the tongue is, will they get back together? Do you think they will? Is this all a build up to it, do you think?
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But the truth is, I think it might ruin it if they did, actually. There's times when the magic of what you create is in the moment, and perhaps that moment's gone. So, it could all well be a massive anticlimax, even if they did. So.
And of course, Noel's got an album out at the moment anyway. I love it. Do you we've got a couple of these tracks on the system.
They've both got albums out.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah. We have to watch this space. Right, here we go then. Take us up to the 8 o'clock news and Oasis. And I said after the 8 o'clock news, we've got a little bit of Blue Pearl for you. It's next on the 2 in a Row show. This is Castledown FM. And I'm with the fantastic Nick, who is Wildbeliever. Right, Nick, how is the coffee? Is it okay for you there?
Yeah, it's very nice, thank you. Yeah.
Which is really good. So, right, so tell us a bit more about the EP then. So how many tracks are on it altogether again?
So there's 4 tracks on the EP. One you've played already, which is I Yearn For You, which is probably the poppiest out of the tracks that are on there.
Yeah.
There's another track, I think perhaps you've got lined up for later, which is Artificial Intelligence.
Yeah, we'll play that one in a moment.
Yeah, there's a shortened version for radio and a kind of old school 12-inch really on the EP that sort of goes off rambling musically and then back again. Third track on there is called Blind, and that's very different for me. That's a piano and strings ballad really. First track I think I've ever recorded without any form of drum track or percussion. And then the last track on there is called Under the Same Sky, and that's purely instrumental. And a lot of people are telling me that it should be on commercials and TV and things. Apparently it lends itself quite well to that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That must be a really good feeling then.
It is, yeah. And it's nice to know... just about everyone that's given me any feedback on the EP, they all like something different, which is great. If everyone said, I love track 1 and the rest of it I'm not bothered about, I would feel a bit sort of deflated. But the lovely thing is everyone seems to be getting something different from it. So that's really, really good for me. Yeah.
And you were saying earlier on as well in the interview that you take a long time with the production side of things.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you then, each track? How long does it take you until you think, yes, this is perfect, this is right, this is what I want, basically? How long does that take you?
It's the truth is the mixing is a forever job, really, and probably because it's something that to this day I'm still learning. Producing the music, so actually getting the music down in its raw form, I'm generally quite quick at doing that. So I could put a track down over a couple of nights, maybe 2 or 3 nights, and then spend the next month mixing it and getting it to the point where I think that it's good enough for people to listen to. So I am, I do tend to go round the long way, I think. And I suppose just about every track on the EP probably owes me 3 weeks of my life, I would think, if not more.
And what was it like for you, Nick, when you finally said, right, these 4, they're ready to put out there in the big wide world? What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I owe some thanks to a chap called Mike Groves, who's a drummer in a band called the High Wire Act, and he's been massively supportive at times when I've sort of doubted myself. And he said to me, look, these are great tracks, and if you wait till you've got an album, you'll be here this time next year, and people still won't be hearing what you're doing. So he's really been instrumental in saying, look, just put it out on an EP. It's good enough. And I think sometimes you just need, like I say, writing is quite a solitary thing, really. You're sat in the studio on your own, and sometimes just to have the confidence from someone else is all it takes, really, to put the music out. So I'm very grateful to him for that. He's been a fantastic help.
Brilliant, really good. So tell us about this track then. We're going to play the second one of yours, Artificial Intelligence. Tell us all about that one, please.
Yeah, it kind of spawned from a little poem that I wrote, a very, very simple poem. And if I'm brutally honest, it was, like I suppose most guys of my age, it was a bit of a moan, really, a bit of a rant. I just got to the point where I just fed up with, we live in a world where commercials on TV shout at us in the commercial break. It's always louder than everything else, and people on, whether it's on TV, social media, or even people that you know in your personal life, everyone says to you things like, well, I'll tell you what you need to do, and I'll tell you what, and I just got to that point of thinking that everyone's shouting at me all the time and telling me how it should be, how I should think and what have you. And that's really where artificial intelligence came from, was really just having a moan, if I'm honest with you. Yeah.
we do that, don't we, ever so often? So
yeah.
And this is the second track on the EP.
It's the second track,
Okay. All right.
I just thought with the running order, it tended to work best with "I Yearn for You" as the opener, because it's the most accessible probably on there. Yeah. Artificial Intelligence, again, the irony is there's lots of people that actually like that better.
Really?
But I think it's a real Marmite thing. So you love it or hate it.
Yeah. Well, I think both of them are great, actually.
Thank you.
And I said we'll play the other two as well next month. I'll let you know when we're going to do those.
Fab.
So I've still got another artist at the moment I'm doing in the second hour of the show, which is great. So you were saying that you're going to do another EP.
Yeah.
When's that sort of going to be out?
Well, I'm working.
What's the plan?
I have actually started working on some of the tracks already. The truth is, I don't know. It's whenever it's finished. It's a few months from now. Yeah.
Well, you must let us know if that's okay. And you're coming again, actually, to sort of talk about it.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
This would be really good, because you've been a great guest, honestly. It's been superb. Really good. So before we play the track then, Artificial Intelligence, everybody who's listening out there would like to listen to the EP, your first EP. What do they need to do, please?
Okay, so it's available on all the regular digital platforms. So, Amazon Music, iTunes. You can stream it on Spotify. So it's called Disconnected, and the artist you need to look up is Wildbeliever. It's also available on Bandcamp. And from a perfectly selfish point of view, I would rather the people went there for it, purely because they support the artist more financially. Streaming is, you need to stream it 1 million times to get next to nothing. And, it's quite nice on Bandcamp because you can set a minimum price, but people can then pay more if they want to. So if they listen to it a couple of times, audition it on there, and they like what they hear, if it's up, for instance, the EP's up for, I think it's up for £3 or £3.50 or something. But I've had people, paying double that for it just because they like it. So I'm really grateful for that. It helps to support the next EP and so on.
That's brilliant. Really great. So go through those again, please, Nick, slowly. That'd be great, mate.
So iTunes and Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Play, Spotify, Deezer, Bandcamp,
Wow.
They're the key, but there are loads more in behind it that I can't even remember the names of, to be honest with you. They all get populated at the same time, so there are others as well. But basically, it should be anywhere that people go for their music these days, other than in the high street, which of course nobody does. They should be able to find it. So under the artist of Wildbeliever, all one word, and the EP's called Disconnected.
And did you say as well that you did the artwork as well? Is that right?
No, I didn't do it personally. Again, the chap that I was talking about, Mike Groves, that sort of pushed me to get it out. I had some ideas, and again, I think his way of thinking was, well, if he's going to get this EP out, and there's barriers to it, for instance, artwork and things, then I'll help him, you know. And he had 2 or 3 ideas for it, and the one that we ended up using it just seemed to sum up exactly. It's a very, very simple image, but it seemed to sum up my way of thinking with the Disconnected theme, which is basically a split in a wall with a light coming through it, and so you can see that the 2 parts of the wall aren't joined together, with the light coming through. And I just thought it was really simple but really effective as well.
Good. Yeah. Great. Well, listen, Nick, thank you ever so much for coming in to our show. And Castledown FM, you're an absolute star, and I'm very pleased you're my first live guest in the studios. I've had lots of guests so far in January on the telephone, but you're my first one. I'm very honoured.
I really appreciate you asking me, and I'm very, very grateful for it. Thank you.
No worries. And you must let us know about your second one, okay, so EP, and come in again sometime. Perhaps it might be summer. I don't know. It might be summer. It might be sunny outside.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Great, wouldn't it? Right then, would you like to introduce this track again then, please?
Yeah, okay, so the second track off the EP, this is actually the radio edit, so it's a short version by some stretch, actually, and it's called Artificial Intelligence.
And it's taken from the EP
Disconnected.
Here we go. Thank you, Nick. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.
At the heart of your community, your station, your music, your Castledown FM.
There you go again, you're talking at me. I can't connect with anything you say. Screaming out for my attention. I'm gonna sigh and walk the other way. You don't speak for me.
Artificial media, antisocial intelligence. Artificial media, antisocial intelligence. Artificial media, antisocial intelligence. Artificial.
You don't speak for me. Believe me. You don't speak for me. Believe me.
Wow. So that was Nick then from Wildbeliever. What a fantastic track that is. As I said, he's got his EP. Check out all your multimedia platforms now to get it. And as I said, it's going to be on next month's show. Okay, in the second hour show when we do our local either CD or EP of the month. Right, let's go.